Welcome to the Metamorphosis Podcast, where we explore the possibilities and processes of personal and community transformation based on the ancient wisdom of Kemet, one of many classical African civilizations, as a foundation. I am Dr. Catherine Lynn Adams, an associate professor of African and African American Studies at Claflin University, where I teach courses on oral and literary traditions of the African world, with an emphasis on interviewing and archiving the stories of our elders. I am serving as a scribe for this project. Joining me is Baba Derrick Jackson. Baba Derrick is the priest and thought leader of Christ Universal Temple, a spiritual community in South Carolina. One of the things that I find to be a beautiful thing that you talk about at the temple is the right for people to have their own creation story.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, it makes it very difficult when there is a global view that maybe there are about 2 or 3 stories.
If that.
Traditions, and I'm thinking about Christianity, I'm thinking about Islam.
Right.
And
Judaism.
And Judaism. And then the people that they like to exclude, but Hinduism and so there's recognition that not everybody believes in the same origin story. But this idea of conversion is very disturbing to me, because I believe in the right of self-determination as much as I believe in the right to origin stories. And I was wondering if you could say a little bit about that.
Yes. Let me say that I've been fortunate enough, really fortunate enough, and blessed in some ways. And I know I'm using the old Christian thought, but I was trained on it, to have sat at the feet, been in the lecture room with some really, really profoundly deep people of African ancestry, male and female. When I think of a Dr. Shashi McIntyre and how she influenced me, when I think of having the opportunity to sit in a closed door, 7 people, 5-hour conversation with Dr. Ben, to be in the room and sit down after Dr. Asa Hilliard, Dr. Marimba Ani, and Dr. Wade Noble, to have those over a meal conversations. For me, Dr. Adams, they answer the why question a lot of times without them knowing that's the question I'm looking for. And because of that, understanding or sitting there and listening to them talk, it helped me walk away from Christianity, but respecting the people who designed it and why they designed it. Now, I'm not going to say it happened immediately. I'd be telling a tale with that one. But I had to work through understanding the Native American got a story. And then I have to break it down to the Shawnee story, to the Cherokee story. So then I learned some things through the Native American story that Shashi McIntyre made me aware of. Dr. Shashi McIntyre, Makaru made me aware of. So now I have to spend time listening to those stories. And it started to dawn on me, listening to stories, not in a book, but talking to people. And said, well, Derrick, doesn't everybody have a right to tell their story? You sure want to tell your story. So it was a revelation that came over time. I'm trying to say it wasn't one that I just immediately became aware of, but through experience, through relationships, started to say to myself, man, everybody has a right to their own story. And if they have a right to their, surely Africans have a right to their own story. And then Diop comes along and Diop said, there's only one culture on the continent. He said, but there are many manifestations and customs of that one culture. And I said, oh, okay. So there are many different origin stories on the continent. There's as many origin stories as there are people, ethnic groups, let me put it that way, on the continent. But Dion says, look for the theme, look for the commonalities in those stories, because it's going to tell you something. And so, so when I would meet a Dr. Adams, a Dr. Catherine Adams, who said to me, sometimes, Baba, you just got to sit with it. That so resonated with me. I said, is that what I've been doing all these times? Is just get the information and then sit with it. And so I say to people, as Dr. Adams would tell me, you need to sit with it to see the complementary, the commonalities. We argue on the customs because we don't understand the culture. So then you get people called FBA, Foundational Black Americans, telling stories as if that story began on the slave ship. You get these organizations now telling stories as if our beginning was 1619. Instead of telling it as we do at the temple, there's cultural authenticity, there's cultural continuity, and cultural memory. And then through my association with you, with Dr. Greg Carr, Dr. Mario Beatty, and his wife, Dr. Valithia Watkins Beatty, y'all introducing me to the way that y'all look at it through Africana study, to understand governance conversation, social structure, cultural meaning making, movement and memory, And I said, oh, wow. I said, these young folk can come up with something so powerful that it's going to scare the rest of the world. I was just happy to be in your company, because one thing I've learned that life has taught me and my ancestors have definitely taught me Be an eternal student. Don't ever stop learning. Dr. Clark was 92 years old and still writing. W.E.B. Du Bois couldn't hardly hold his hands together at 90 years old trying to write an encyclopedia. Where do I get off quitting at this? You understand what I'm saying? And they were perpetual students of life. That's what kept them going, was that they were constantly learning and then teaching, listening and then teaching. I think I'm saying something here. There's a technique that Dr. Obinga, Theophil Obinga, in his book tell us the technique they're coming is you first listen, then you learn. I added the word study in there. So it's listen, learn, study, then do. There's a technique.
I think the beautiful thing is that the connections between the Africana studies, conceptual categories, and framework are the evidence of listening. It's the categories that reflect the listening, the learning, the studying, and then the doing.
Then the doing.
And so I see the reciprocity in that, as opposed to in the academy where you put your name on something and you're the sole proponent of that thing, and you encounter somebody else's niche and then you tweak it a little bit and then you copyright it for yourself, that little niche. And I don't think of the conceptual categories or the framework as that kind of project.
It's reciprocity in relationships, as we say at the temple. As Amar has taught us, it is the way, our way of giving and receiving. What if everything was built that was built was done on gratitude? That what we were looking at is the manifestation of gratitude to the divine for the love they received.
Well, I'm grateful that we had the opportunity to sit with people who are now ancestors, that they left their writings behind, and so we can continue to sit with their books and recordings all over YouTube. And that we still have the opportunity to sit with elders like you. And so that idea of reciprocity seems to me like that is also part of those things that are absolutely accessible and can be replicated, and almost required of us to replicate and then to teach that. Thank you, Baba, for another rich episode. We want to archive something special that was established in 2000, more than 2 decades ago. In upcoming episodes, we will be exploring the history of Christ Universal Temple, its teachings on spirituality and personal growth, and its role in the Columbia, South Carolina community. We invite you to like, comment, and subscribe to receive notifications for future episodes. Thank you for listening.